Om Badram Karnebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Ryajatraha Sthirairangair Dushtuvam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vridrashrabaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Tarksho Arishtademihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Yo Antaha Pravishya Mamavacha Imam Prashuptam Sanjeevayati Akhila Shakti Daraswadamna Anyam Shtahasta Charana Shravanatvagadin Pranan Namo Bhagavate Purushaya Tubhyam Lasatu Srimadananda Tirtendurno Hrudambare Yadvachaschandrika Swanta Santapam Vinigrantati Padavakya Pramana Jnan Pranamya Shirasa Gurun Vyakarishye Yata Bhutam Vishnu Tattva Vinirnayam. So, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to folks who have joined from various parts. So, thank you very much for signing in today. And today we are going to be doing a very interesting session. It's session 32. And before we get started, I hope you all had a good summer break. It's been quite a while, 4 weeks. So I hope you've had a good time with your family and friends, and also have done a little bit of revision to kind of start making our Pravesha an onward journey into the Mundaka Upanishad or the Atharvana Upanishad. Today we got the 32nd session, okay, 32nd session of Mundaka Upanishad, which has been contemplation that's been going on for well over a year, I think now, almost getting to a year, okay? So we're going to keep this as a very interactive session. It's about revising all that we have done, and hopefully within that 60 minutes, we'll be able to touch upon some new words today. Okay, so I want to keep it as interactive as it can be, and please do contribute and answer any questions or quizzes that comes about for the first half of the session, which is essentially revision of all that we have done so far. Okay, so the first question here. So we are doing part 32. Yeah. So in Vedic philosophy, as you know, numbers is a big deal, isn't it? So we have Sankhya. So there's a lot of philosophy in numbers. So I want to start off by just making us think about this number 32. What is the importance of number 32 in our Shastra? So who wants to take this up?
There are 32 Sarvamula. So Sarvamula is made up of 32 Granthas of Madhvacharya, and 32 Lakshanas, they say, is necessary for Jivottama.
Okay, very good, Pratibhaji. I think you got the answer right. So Sarvamula is 37, whereas 32, as you said, is Lakshanas. So 32, if somebody has 32 Lakshanas, then that person is considered as a perfect being. Yeah, 32 is an important number. And the view from the Tattvavada is Srimad Acharya had all the 32 Lakshanas, and he was able to see the knowledge as it is, as he is a Riju. Yeah, all Rijus have 32 Lakshanas. So 32 is an important number. So where were we? We are in Vedas, right? We are doing Upanishads Chintana. So just a very brief bird's eye view. Anantavai Vedaha. Vedas are infinite. But at the end of Dwapara Yuga, as documented in Skanda Purana, much of the Vedas were lost. So at that point, Chaturmukha, Rudra, and others, they approach Narayana and says, do something, mate. Vedas are being lost. So at that point, Vedavyasa, that is Narayana's incarnation, appears in Satyavati and Parashara Muni. Okay, so the Vedavyasa compiled the Vedas. So all the Vedas were compiled into 4 groups, right? Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Vedas. And then he gave it to his students, Paila, Vaishampayana, Jaimini, and Sumantu. So then these rishis gave it to their subsequent families to preserve these Vedas by Shruti. As you know, it's called Shruti. So Rig has got 24 Shakes. Yajus, there is an interesting story there, but that becomes Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda. Krishna Yajurveda goes to Vaishampayana to preserve. Shukla Yajurveda goes to Yajnavalkya, the great rishi of the Upanishad, to preserve. And then Krishna Yajurveda has got 86 Upashakes, Shukla Yajurveda 15 Upashakes, Sama, 1,000 Upashakes, Atharvana 12. Much of it, as we know, is lost. So we got about 3 to 6, 3 and 2 in all these 4 Veda Shakes that is currently available in Bharatvarsha. And if you put all these verses together, probably around 20 or 1,000 verses that are available, which is all, categorized into Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishads. Okay. So that we all understand. So that Upanishads, and if the Vedas are infinite, Upanishads are also infinite, but we traditionally talk about 108 Upanishads or 10 Upanishads. So we boil down to 10 Upanishads because Srimad Acharya has given Bhashya on the 10 Upanishads, which summarizes the essence of Vedic philosophy. We got Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva Veda with the respective Upanishads. Just want to remind us all that in Yajur Veda, there is a Shukla and Krishna. We have done Isha Upanishad before, and we have completed Kataka or Katha Upanishad. We have done Sama Veda Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. Atharva Veda is where we are doing a lot of Upanishads. We have done Mandukya Upanishad before, and now currently we are doing Mundaka Upanishad. So here is a small little metaphor. Many of us will be very aware of this. It's a very common metaphor in this forum. Krishna riding this chariot of 4 horses with Arjuna as the warrior there in Mahabharata. So these 4 horses, although was given by Agni Deva the chariot was given by Agni Deva to Arjuna. Metaphorically, they actually signify the 4 Vedas, which is under the control of Paramatma or Krishna. Yeah. In every creation, Vak Vivrutashta Vedaha, it comes out and then it goes back in every creation. So the 4 Vedas in that sense is under total control of Paramatma. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. So that is the beauty of Gita. So now if we want to understand Vedas and Bhagavad Gita in the proper perspective, we need a Nirnayaka Shastra. Nirnayaka, that which determines the import or the meaning of a particular verse. So that is done in Vedanta Sutra. So the interesting thing is Veda Vyasa is all over the place. He is all pervasive in all these 3 primary texts. In Vedanta Sutras, composed by Veda Vyasa. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, composed by Veda Vyasa. So we should never ever forget that. In fact, Srimad Acharya is the only Acharya in his Bhashya has actually celebrated Veda Vyasa because he is the composer of Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita. What is Bhagavad Gita? Conversation between Krishna and Arjuna that happened on the battlefield, which is documented by Veda Vyasa. And of course, the same Veda Vyasa is the compiler of all the Vedas. So we got 1, 2, and 3. So this is a quick question for us. What is that 3? These 3, what is it called? What are these 3 things called in our Shastra? Upanishad.
Prasthanatraya.
Prasthanatraya. Okay, very good. Yeah, fantastic. Good answer there. So that is called Prasthanatraya. And in fact, in Gita 15:15, Krishna himself says, Vedashta sarvair ahameva vedyaha, Vedanta krit vedavid evechaham. Vedanta krit is Vedanta Sutra. Okay? Vedas are Vedas, and Srimad Gita, Bhagavad Gita is what he's saying. So this is what is captured in this 15:15. So Gita, this is an important point. Gita is a summary of the Upanishads, right? And an interesting point to note there is Katha Upanishad and Mundaka Upanishad are very closely related to the philosophy of Gita. Okay, so if we understand the philosophy of the Katha Upanishad or Kataka Upanishad and Mundaka Upanishad or the Atharvana Upanishad, then we combine this with the philosophy of the Gita, then you will be able to get the Samanvaya and the comprehensive understanding of what is happening in our Prasthanatrayas. Okay, so that's the beauty of why Katha and Mundaka are important, and of course we have done Katha Upanishad before, and we are halfway through the Mundaka Upanishad. So that's the importance of Mundaka Upanishad, which is part of the Atharva Veda. Now, Mundaka Upanishad, any Upanishad that we talk about, we always think about the Rishi, the Devata, and what is the Chandas. Rishis are important. We should never do plagiarism. We should always humbly submit whatever it is that we are saying from our ancient scriptures. We acknowledge all the Rishis who have given it to us. And who are the Rishis here? Atharvana, Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, Shuanaka, all the Acharyas and the Gurus that we have learned over eons, generations after generations. So never forget our Rishis. For this particular Upanishad, the specific discussion is between Angirasa Rishi and Shuanaka, who is a great sacrifice performer. He's a great Yagnashalaha, Mahashalaha, performs great sacrifices. So he is having this conversation with Angirasa. So Angirasa is the guru for Shuanaka, who is the student in that situation. But actually for the Shuanaka is also a guru, and all the acharyas are gurus. The chandas for this particular Upanishad is, it can be in Anushtup and it can be in other chandas also, and we can deal with this as we go along. Okay? The Devata becomes very important. Who is the Devata of this Upanishad? The Devata of this Upanishad is Akshara Namaka Paramatma. Akshara is the name of the Devata. Rishi is all these guys. Angiras and Shuanaka being key characters in this Upanishad. Chandas is Anushtup. Okay. So what we will do over the next 20-25 minutes is Simha Avalokana. Simha Avalokana. So when this lion is walking through the jungle, okay, and as it walks through, it kind of retraces, it turns back and looks at the path that it has retraced. This lion is so strong and majestic. It is the king of the jungle. This jungle is the samsara. We are the kings of the jungle because we are doing Shastra Abhyasa and we are doing the Upanishads. And this lion is now looking back and doing a bit of what is the path that I have taken. Yeah. So Neeta Shushut Kulkarni, thank you very much. Anushtup Chandas 32. Beautiful. So again, 32. Today's class 32 session. Anushtup Chandas is 32. So very well spotted, Neeta ji. Thank you. Sushut, thanks. So we are the lions. We are looking back at the path that we have taken over the last 12 months. Simhavalokana. A review of what has been discussed so far. So what I want to do here is take you through what we have done so far. So we have done Pratama Kandaha. In the Dvitiya Kandaha, we have done the first Kanda. Now we are in the second Kanda of the second Mundaka. So as you know, the Upanishad has got 4 Mundakas. And Mundaka means a chapter. And each chapter has got 2 sections. They are called Khandas. Chapters are called Mundakas. So Pratama Mundake, Pratama Khandaha was the first thing that we did. So what were the key ideas that we captured from the first Khanda of the first Mundaka? Angirasa tells us there are 2 types of knowledge, guys. There is something called Aparavidya and then there is called Paravidya. Dve vidye veditavye itihasma yat brahmavido vadanti para chaiva aparacha tatra apara rigvedo yajurvedaha samavedo atharva vedaha siksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti atapara yaya tad aksharam adigamyate. Beautiful, beautiful verse. Gives you the introduction to what is it that we are trying to seek here when we do Vedas, when we do Adhyayana of the Vedas and Vedas, Upanishads, Gita and so on. What is it that we are doing? Angirasa says there are 2 knowledges in the world. There is the Aparavidya and there is a Paravidya. Paravidya is the highest knowledge. Aparavidya is the lower knowledge. It is not the useless knowledge. It is a lower knowledge, whereas the higher knowledge is Paravidya. Paravidya means knowledge of Akshara. Ata para yaya tad aksharam adigamyate. That volume of text that gives us the knowledge of Parabrahman or Akshara or Vishnu is Paravidya. And that Paravidya is obtained by the Vedas, which can also be Aparavidya. Okay? Because that is what Angirasa says. The same scripture can be Aparavidya or Paravidya. It all depends on the lens with which we look at it. Okay? So here is a quick question. What is the lens that we should use, which is one among the Prasthana Trayas, which is also a Paravidya, which is used to interpret the Vedas so that the Vedas become Paravidya and talk about Narayana? So who is going to take that question?
Brahma Sutras.
Fantastic, Sushro. Thank you very much. So that is Brahma Sutra is also Paravidya. And when you use Brahma Sutras and understand the Upanishads through our Acharyas, that becomes Paravidya because it only talks about Vishnu. Every letter, sounds, words, sentences, everything talks about Vishnu only. When you look at it from that perspective, that becomes Paravidya. If you just look at it as, oh, this is just some sacrifice, somebody is throwing something, you have to get up in the morning and do something when the sun rises and the sun sets, etc., in a very mundane, spinal level, that is Aparavidya. Okay, Paravidya is only when you see it from the perspective of this is taking me to Brahman. Tad aksharam adhigamyate. That which gives you the knowledge of akshara is Paravidya. So that akshara or Paravidya talks about Brahman or the nature of Brahman. It talks about the first kanda, talks about the nature of Brahman, the definition of Brahman. And the most important point from my perspective is that it talks about the creatorship of Brahman and that the created universe is absolutely real. So that is what Angirasa is saying here. What does he say about the nature of Brahman? He who is the creator of the universe. Yata urnanabihi srujate grihnate cha yata prithibhyam oshadayah sambhavanti yata sataho purushat keshalomani tata aksharat sambhavati iha vishwam. Remember that beautiful analogy of the spider, where he gives an explanation how the material world comes about, how the jivas come about, and what is the nature of his creation, which is a spontaneous, effortless act. Those ideas are all described in this, talks about the nature and the definition of Brahman. That Brahman's definition is Janmadhyasya Yataha, as Vedanta Sutra says. And this particular verse in the first kanda gave us an insight as to what that means. Then the two important verses, 8 and 9, as you know, this particular kanda has got 9 verses. The 8 and 9 finish off with a very, very important verse, which some schools of thought have conveniently decided to ignore or not to give attention to it. Because it says, Tapasachiyate Brahma. Here he has said, this guy creates this universe. Then he says, Tapasachiyate Brahma. This Brahman, who is called Akshara, creates the universe because he thinks and the creation happens. Tapasachiyate Brahma, tato annam abhijayate, annat prano manaha, satyam lokaha, karmasu cha amrutam. Satyam lokaha. I don't know how some folks can conveniently forget or not talk about these verses. Satyam lokaha, this world is absolutely real that Brahman creates. It's not a mithya or an illusion. By saying that Brahman creates an illusory universe, you're actually accusing Brahman of actually deceiving us, and you're bringing down Brahman. Okay? By actually consider him as a person who creates a real universe, you're able to understand how great this Brahman is, that he is able to create this stupendous universe. Okay? And how does he do? Tapasachiyate Brahma. He thinks and then he creates. If you want to have an illusion, if you want to have a snake superimposed on a rope, or you want to have a conch shell a silver superimposed on a conch shell, or if you are in a desert and you are seeing a mirage and you think that it is a river, that is all an involuntary act. Nobody gets an illusion voluntarily. Okay, so this is common sense. This is basic common sense that some folks have forgotten. Tapasa chiyate Brahma. This Brahman thinks, and this Satyam Lokaha comes into being. And then immediately in verse 9, our Angirasa says, this tapaha is different from tapas of ordinary jivas. Tapas means what? Tapa alochane, thinking. We think because there is an element of ignorance here. Oh, what breakfast should I make tomorrow? You are not sure. There is an element of ignorance. So that is how you think. Whereas for Brahman, what is it? Jnanamayam tapaha. And how is he? Yes, sarvajnaha, sarvavid, yasya jnanamayam tapaha. Tasmad etad Brahma nama rupam annam cha jayate. Okay, these are all, we have done all these beautiful verses. This is very clear from the first kanda that actually talks about Paravidya. It talks about who this Brahman is as the creator of the universe. Then it qualifies and says this creation of the universe is Satyam Lokaha, and that the Brahman thinks and then he creates, and his thought is full of knowledge. No ignorance at all in Brahman. He is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes. And of course, Angirasa reminds us that he is, yes, Sarvajnaha. Never forget that. So that is the importance of the first kanda of the first Mundaka. Pratama Kande, Pratama Mundake, Dvitiya Kandaha. In the second kanda, what did we do? Because this Shuanaka is a great sacrificer. Shaunako Havai Mahashalaha. Yeah. Angirasam Upasannaha Papracha Kasminnu Bhagavo Vijnate Sarvamidam Vijnatam Bhavati. That is how the whole Upanishad started, right? So he was a big Yajnashala. He used to have huge Yajnashalas and he used to do huge sacrifices. Okay. So this kanda talks about how that Yajna Kunda is, and how you don't just go to a temple and do a havan, and most of us unfortunately do it. But in the second Khanda, Angirasa and Shuanaka are having this conversation where a clear spiritual view, philosophical view of how that havan needs to happen is very clearly mentioned in this particular Khanda over 13 verses. So any person doing havan is strongly encouraged to study the second Khanda of the Pratama Mundake. He talks about Yada Leelayate hi Archihi Samiddo Havyavahane Tada Ajyabaga Vantarena Ahutihi Pratipadayet. It says, see Brahman, his two eyes, his mouth, see that in the flame, when the flames are dancing, don't just think them as flames and throw your stuff. Havis or whatever we call it. No, see that when the fire is burning well, when there are these 7 flames, look at that. See the eyes of Brahman and the mouth of Brahman and give the ahuti into the mouth of Brahman. See Vishnu in that fire. After all, Agni Mile Purohitam, the Agni is Agni Namaka Narayana, right? Agni Narayana. So Angirasa says, Shuanaka, when you do a fire sacrifice, Shuanaka, see that Agni is Agni Narayana. And in that Agni, there are these flames. Look at those 2 eyes of the flame. Each flame has got 2 lips. Look at them as eyes and look at the base of that as the mouth. Give the havis there as an offering to Vishnu, not some material fire. So this is a fundamental thing that Angirasa is telling us about how to do havan. Okay. So next time when we do havan, we have to do it like this. Otherwise, it is a aparavidya. It is a complete waste of time. If our the Purohita who is doing it does not explain that this fire is Narayana, these lips of flames are there, give the ahuti into the mouth. If he doesn't do it, unfortunately, it becomes an aparavidya. Okay, so then he says, if you want to know more about this Brahman or the fire sacrifice, how you have to do, Tadvijnanartam sa gurumeva abhigachet samitpanihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. If you want to know about this yajna and the Brahman who is in that, go to a guru, approach him with what? Checkbook with a lack of rupees or donation, which is very popular in this part of the world that I'm currently in. No, it says samit panihi. With your hands, hold samit. Samit is what? All the sticks that is used for yajna. That is what the guru wants. Yeah. Shrotriyam. Who is that guru? Shrotriyam. Brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam. He is a guy who knows a lot of Veda. And he knows that the Vedas talk about only Brahman. And he is established in Brahman. Brahmanishtam. That is the qualification of a guru. Angirasa is explaining to Shuanaka. Then he says, Parikshalokan, Karmachitan, Brahmano, Nirvedamayan. Akrita kritena. Yeah, so that is also why you should do this. Examine this world. Understand that everything is transient in this world. That you want to seek something that is permanent. That is why you want to do all these yajnas so that you get paravidya and go to a higher level. So the second khanda is very beautiful, talking about the fire sacrifice. Tasmai sa vidwan upasannaya samyak prashanta chittaya shamanvitaya yena aksharam purusham veda satyam provacha tam tattvato brahmavidyam. So it talks about how to approach a guru, how a student should be, how humble you should be, how you fall at the feet of the guru and how he will teach you and so on. So beautiful about yajna, the philosophy of yajna, how a guru will teach. Yeah. So the second khanda is all about the fire sacrifice and how to see Vishnu in that fire sacrifice. If we throw stuff as a material fire, it is a complete waste of time. We got to see that Agni as Agni Narayana and see that Agni Narayana, who is none other than Vishnu. Our Srimad Acharya in the Rig Bhashya, for Agni, he has given so many etymologies, all talking about Vishnu. Okay? So let us not forget that. That's the importance of Dvitiya Khanda. So then what did we do? We moved to the Dvitiya Mundake Prathama Khandaha. So in the Dvitiya Mundaka, what then Angirasa says is he picks up this concept of fire sacrifice as to how you can see Vishnu as the fire, as the Agni, And then in the first kanda of the first Mundaka, he talks about the creatorship of the universe. Angirasa now says, when you are doing the yoga sacrifice, the sacrifice itself talks about the creatorship of the universe. This is amazing. The metaphors that Angirasa uses is just incredible. Understanding creation through Agni Kunda. Creations of devatas. How do all the devatas, Chaturmukha, Rudra, you name it, Indra, Varuna, Mitra, Yama, etc., how do they come? What is their orders of creation? What is the emergence of Vedas during creation? What is Panchagni Vidya? How do mortal, mundane, useless souls like you and me, how do we come into existence? Okay, Panchagni Vidya. Remember that Panchagni, beautiful Panchagni Vidya that is also discussed in Chandogya Upanishad and also in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So that is all discussed in the Pratama Khandaha of the Dvitiya Mundake. Understanding creation through Agni Kunda. Yad, Etad, Satyam. This Aksharanamaka Paramatma is Satyam. He is what? Etad, he is inside you. Tat, he is all pervasive. Tat, Etat, Satyam. There itself the philosophy is clear. Then it says, Yada Suduptat, Pavakad, Vishpulingaha, Sahasrashaha, Prabhavante, Sarupaha, Tata Aksharad, Vividaha, Somya Bhavaha, Prajayante, Tatracha Eva Apiyanti. Fantastic words. When you look at that Agni Kunda, when you have the sparks are coming out, there is smoke that is there is the fire, there is the coal, there is the ash. He is looking at the Angirasa is looking at all that and saying, these are not just there. Our rishis have not framed this just because it's a mundane exercise. No, you see the creatorship of Brahman in all this. Yatha Sudiptat Pavakat Vishpulingaha, the sparks that come out. Those are the jivas that come out. And there we understood the sparks are not the flame. The sparks are different. Their origins are very different. Flame is the flame. Paramatma is the Paramatma. Jivatmas are coming out in creation. We discussed all that. Go and check that out. So that is the beauty of that particular khanda. Purusha eva idam vishwam karma tapo brahma para amrutam. Yadyo Veda nihitam guhayam so avidya grantim vikirati iha somya. So that is what that particular last verse, 10 verses, right, in this khanda. The 10th verse starts with a very, very important philosophy for us. It's all well and good doing the fire sacrifice, seeing Vishnu, seeing the creatorship. Tat etat satyam. Tat, that which is all pervasive, is very close to you. Etat means very close to you. Who is that? Satyam. What is Satyam? Satyam talks about the creatorship of Brahman. That etat satyam, where is he? He who knows. Yad yo Veda nihitam guhayam. He who knows that Satyam, that Akshara, that Parabrahman, that Paramatma is actually your Antaryamin who is inside you. That is the primary requirement. We might go to endless temples. We might do endless pilgrimages. We might do endless bhajans and whatever yajnas. That is all fine, but that is only a route. It is all still paroksha jnana. It is indirect knowledge. Here, Angirasa gives a very, very important step for us. He says, he who knows that Antaryamin, who is inside him. And there are jivas are infinite, right? Each jiva has its own capacity. And in each jiva, there is an Antaryamin. And that Antaryamin is non-different from another Antaryamin in the another jiva. But that Antaryamin shows himself to this jiva based on the jiva's capacity. But the Antaryamin is the same. But the jivas are different. They see him as per their capacity. That aparoksha jnana is the most important thing for salvation. All other things are secondary. Is Angirasa's view. Not only Angirasa's view, all the Veda, all the Upanishads, they talk only about this. Yadyo Veda nihitam guhayam. Please see your Antaryaman. Please see your Antaryaman. Okay, it's very, very important idea that Angirasa introduces the concept of nihitam guhayam. So I'm going to break for there a minute. So who is going to remind us, where is the jiva? Where is this Paramatma? Where is it there in this Pindanda? So who is going to remind us of that? Any takers? Srikanji, go for it.
I must glance.
I didn't quite get this. Please elaborate, Srikanji.
Thymus gland, which is the Anahata chakra of the body.
Oh, brilliant. Thymus gland. Oh, yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Srikanji. Anahata chakra and thymus gland. Beautiful. Yeah. So that is what the rishis are pointing as. Look, this jiva is not in this pumping heart. No, because if you can do cardiac transplantation. The jiva is there in the you know, that pundarikam, the inverted lotus leaf that is discussed in Dahara Vidya of Chandogya Upanishad. Prashna Upanishad talks about where the jiva is, takes that the jiva is in the middle portion of the hrit. Hrit is the middle portion. In the middle portion, in the anterior, middle, and posterior mediastinum. In one part, there is the inverted thymus, inverted lotus bud, which is the thymus gland. In the thymus gland, there is a cave. There is a small little hole. In that hole is the jiva, which is 1/10,000 type of the tip of the horse described in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Inside the jiva is this antaryami. So we need to think about that. What is it that Angirasa is reminding us? He who knows this, what happens to him? Saha avidya granthim vikirati iha somyam. So that fellow who sees Antaryaman will immediately lose all his karmic imprints is gone, his avidya is gone, and everything else, and he will be eligible for moksha right now. That doesn't mean he'll go to moksha now. That is also a misconception that some people think. No, he is eligible for moksha right now. Means what? He has to go to Satyaloka with Chaturmukha Brahma, wait for Chaturmukha Brahma to finish his Brahmakalpa. When the Mahapralaya has happened, then they all go cross the Viraja Nadi and then they go to the transempirical plane. So that is how you see that. So that is an important idea of Nihitam. So the reason why we are saying this idea is in the 10th, that is the Prathama Khanda of the Dvitiya Mundaka, is that the 10th verse introduces the concept of Antaryamin. So here is another philosophy. Antaryamin means Antaryamin, that which is inside and controls. Yeah. If something is inside, means what? There must be something there, and inside it goes in. So if there is a house and I enter a house, the house should be there. I should enter the house. Then only it makes sense. So Antaryamin by definition means there is a jiva. That jiva is different from Antaryamin. This Antaryamin is inside him. Yeah, that is one important point. The other important point is this Antaryamin and jiva. Jiva is not a superimposition on the Antaryamin. Jiva is jiva, Antaryamin is different. Some folks somehow try to skew up the language and say jiva and Antaryamin are one and the same. That is their problem. But we are very clear from the language of the Vedas that it clearly talks about yo. Yad yo veda nihitam. Yad yo means somebody. Who is that somebody? It is the jiva. What is the jiva knows? Nihitam guhayam, that there is this fellow inside me also. He is called Paramatma. So this idea is very important because that is what the Dvitiya Mundake, Dvitiya Khandaha, which is what that we are doing. Okay? We are doing what right now? And where did we leave 3 to 4 weeks ago? We were talking about the philosophy of Antaryamin. Why is he there? How to know him? What is the process? That is what Angirasa is teaching us in the Dvitiya Khandaha, the Dvitiya Mundaka. So when you look at this, the sequence of thought of Angirasa is perfect. Talking about what are the knowledge, introducing the concept of God, and then talking about who this Paramatma or Brahman is, and how in our sacrifice we can think about this Brahman, his creatorship, and what is the important things about the Agni Kunda. And it is not, the importance of Agni Kunda is outside, right? But important is you see that Agni Namaka Narayana, Paramatma, inside yourself as a jiva, which is the most important step. And then he talks about the philosophy of Antaryamin in the Dvitiya Khanda, which is what we are doing. And then, of course, you have Tritiya Mundake, Prathama Khandaha, Tritiya Mundake, Dvitiya Khandaha. So you have how much? We have done 9, 13, and 10. We have done 32 verses already. There are 64 verses in this Upanishad. We have done 32 over a year. And in Dvitiya Mundake, there are 11 verses. We have, I think, done about 3 or so. And then we got another, in Tritiya Khanda, you have 2, Tritiya Mundake, we had 2 Khandas, 10 verses and 11 verses. So hopefully by the end of the year, we should be able to complete this in all its glories. Mundaka Upanishad is one of the most amazing Upanishads that anybody can spend time studying. Okay. So Dvitiya Mundake, Dvitiya Khandaha, this is what we have done. So how does it start? So the previously he said there is this Antaryamin. The next question was, why is this fellow there and wasting his time? Nobody is interested in him. Why is this Antaryamin inside us? Why can't he just sit in Vaikuntha and have a good time? Why should he be in us as jivas? It's a complete waste of, because none of us are interested. So Angirasa is saying, Avihi sannihitam guhacharam nama mahat padam atra etad arpitam yejat pranat nimishat cha yad etad janata sadasat varenyam param vijnanat yad varishtam prajananam. So, very clear verse. We'll take up that in a minute. Yad archimat yad anubhyo anuhu cha yasmin lokaha nihitaha lokinashcha tadetad aksharam brahma sa pranaha taduvu vang manaha tadetad satyam tad amrutam tad vedavyam somya vidhi dhanur grihitva Upanishadam mahastram sharam hi upasa sandadita ayamya tadbhava gatena chetasa lakshyam tadeva aksharam somya vidhi pranavo danuhu sharohi atma brahmatal laksham uchyate apramattena vedavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Clear statements. So let's see what that first one is. Quick, it's a recap, right? So a quick thing. Avihi sannihitam guhacharam nama. This Antaryamin is very close to you. And he's doing various activities. There itself, karma yoga is come in place. Sarva kartrutva of Brahman. He is doing all the activities. We think we are independent doers. That is why we are in samsara. It is Brahman who is an independent doer of everything. And he's inside us as Antaryamin and making us do everything. Okay, we also do, but he's an independent doer. We are a dependent doer. That's a different topic. But when he says sannihitam guhacharam nama, that philosophy of karma yoga itself is shown there. And he is inside you. And that he is very well known in the scriptures as somebody who is an Antaryamin and is inside you. Nobody in the scripture has said Jiva Brahmaikya. It is only talks about Antaryamin and there is a Jiva. Okay, I really don't know how some schools can kind of mold this and come up with this airy-fairy philosophy. That is not the language of the Upanishads that I see here. Why is he there? To show himself to us. Who are us? We are not this body, we are the jivas. So the jivas are there and the Antaryamin is inside the jiva. And why is there that Antaryamin? So that we stupid jivas at some point can turn inwards and actually make that effort to see him. He is ever merciful. He is always sitting there. Okay, and saying, when is this fellow going to turn towards me and see me? When is he going to see me? When he is going to see me is what Paramatma is thinking about. That is what Angirasa says. Avihi, ever manifest. That is a literal meaning of Avihi. San nihitam, he is very close to you. Guhacharam, Nama, very well known in the scriptures. Yeah, he is the great goal. Everything has taken shelter in him, and he classifies that everything has Yejat, Pranat, Nimishat. These three are the various type of sentient beings. And by putting Cha there, Angirasa says all the Jadas. He is in everything. He is an all-pervasive being. Okay, Yetat Janata, know him. Without knowing him, there is no scope. And who is this guy? We are all jivas, right? Here Angirasa gives a qualification. You are all mundane jivas. There is a highest jiva called Chaturmukha Brahma. Whereas this guy, this Antaryamin is also an Antaryamin in Chaturmukha Brahma and he is the highest. He is even higher than everything. Param Vijnanad Yed Varishtam. Vijnanad is Chaturmukha's name. Go and do the Bhagavata research there. There is a beautiful verse that talks about Param Vijnanat. Vijnana means Chaturmukha. He is the Abhimani of Vijnanamaya Kosha. So this Paramatma is Varishtam. He is Param of Vijnana. Who is this Chaturmukha Brahma? He is Varishtam Prajananam. He is the highest among Jivas. He is called Chaturmukha Brahma. Whereas this Vishnu is Param. He is higher even than the Chaturmukha Brahma. Not only highest among all the sentient beings, he also says he is Param of what? Sadasat Varenyam. Sat and Asat there means Sat and Asat is manifested and unmanifested. Manifested means the ones that you can see. Tejas, Ap and Annam. Whereas Vayu and Akasha, you can't see. That is unmanifest. So Asat is those, Sat are these. He is beyond these two. He is beyond five bhutas. He is beyond matter. He is completely non-material. He is higher than the Chaturmukha Brahma, which is famously described in chapter 50. Okay, very, very clear, beautiful verse. This guy, if you want to know him, here is another beautiful thing. But this person can be, how do you know him as your Antaryaman? Who is he? He's subtler than the subtlest. He is supporter of the whole world and he is bigger than the biggest. So if, for example, you were going to have if you have a target and you want to hit this target, if this target is the Antaryaman, if you want to use, let's say, a metaphor of a bow and an arrow, if you want to take an arrow and you want to hit this target, which is your Antaryaman, how is he going to do it? It's really difficult, because how will you use an arrow and hit something that is subtler than the subtlest? How are you going to hit a target with an arrow which is bigger than the biggest? You can't do it. In the previous kanda, he spoke about his Agni as Narayana. So let me take a bow and hit the fire. If I hit the Agni, Kunda, with fire, what happens? The arrow will only get burned. You cannot hit an Agni. Yeah. So Madhyama Parinama, Sukshma Parinama, Mahaparinama, all these various Parinamas, material Parinamas, you cannot hit them because he's totally non-material. How can we target an arrow with these things using a material arrow on something who is totally non-material? So that is another important question that Angirasa raises. And he again says, Tadetad Aksharam Brahma, Sapranaha, Taduvangmanaha, Tadetad Satyam, Tadamrutam, Tad Vedavyam Somya Vidhi. So in these words, he talks about Brahman. Every word here talks about Brahman, talks about the Sarva Shabda Vachyatva. Tat, Etat, Akshara, Pranaha. Pranaha means what? Prakrishta eva karoti. He is the highest doer of everything. He is prana. Vak. Vakti iti vak. In creation, it speaks the whole Veda. So he is called Vak. Manana Shila. He is the Sarvajna. He is the most knowledgeable person. Satyam. He is the creator of the universe. Amrutam. He is never attached to material world. He is unborn. He is Ajaha. He is unborn. We are born with material bodies, but he is never born with material bodies. So these are all the ideas that Angirasa gives us for our contemplation. These are all the things about this Antaryaman. Vedavyam. Know him. He should be known. If we need to make progress in our samsara and reach liberation, Angirasa says, know this guy whom I have spoken to you when you do fire sacrifice. I've told you he is your Antaryaman. You need to know this Antaryaman, because only when you know this Antaryaman, you will have a scope of your liberation. So after he has done this, then the question is, how should we know him? Okay, so that is what we were discussing. When we closed for our holiday period, there are two stages of knowing. Okay? Even for knowing, there are two stages, and we should be very, very clear about this. There is something called Paroksha Jnana. Two stages of knowing. The first stage is called Paroksha Jnana. Para, Aksha, Jnana. Aksha means what? Your Indriyas. Para means what? Different. So these material eyes, ear, tongue, and everything we have, they are different from us. Para Aksha Jnana. We are using these Indriyas that are different from us, which is material, to know about something. Okay? It is an indirect knowledge obtained through our material Indriyas. And how do we get that indirect knowledge with our material Indriyas? We open a book, we attend the satsang, today's sessions is all Paroksha Jnana. And when we do all this Paroksha Jnana, what we do, we will have a mental construct of who this Paramatma will be. That mental construct is also material. Okay, so this is where most of us are stuck. Okay, so we think we are making philosophical progress, but we are stuck at this stage. Mental construct of who this Paramatma is, using indirect knowledge, which is called Paroksha Jnana. Okay, and then there is the second level, which is called Aparoksha Jnana. Apara, Aksha, Jnana. Apara means non-different. Aksha, Indriyas. So non-different Indriyas of Jivas. Okay, so the Jivas are sentient beings. They are supposed to have their own eternal Indriyas. So the knowledge that you obtain from your own Indriyas, which is non-material. You are non-material, right? We have learned that from Gita. Whereas these material senses are material. But the Jivas have this Aparoksha Jnana, Apara Aksha, that is there. Jiva itself has got its Indriyas. That goes inwards and sees the Antaryaman. So that is a direct knowledge, right? You are directly experiencing that Antaryaman inside you. You are non-material, your antaryamin is non-material. So you are going inwards and having that knowledge of that antaryamin who is inside you. That is aparoksha jnana, direct experience of God. Okay. So this aparoksha jnana, all the Upanishads, the Gita, the sutras, the Prasthanatrayas and all the Puranas that have come afterwards, they've all unilaterally declared that the direct experience of God is the fundamental step for liberation. Okay? Getting that aparoksha jnana is the first step. At this step, you don't realize that you are God. That is foolishness. You realize that there is an antaryamin inside me who is my controller. That is the view of certain schools of Vedanta. That you have a direct experience of God. Who has it? The Jiva has a direct experience of God. That is what Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has said, isn't it? Atmava are drashtavyaha, shrotavyo mantavyo, nitidhyasitavyaha. And then we have done this. Nitidhyasi, deep contemplation or dhyana. There are two aspects, right? Sampragnata sthiti, asampragnata sthiti. Sampragnata sthiti is still paroksha jnana because you are using your mental mind construct and you are focusing on something. Whereas the asampragnata sthiti that Krishna talks about is the real aparoksha jnana, where the jiva swarupa goes inwards and sees its antaryamin. Okay, so that is what is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Yajnavalkya is teaching Maitreyi there. There are two aspects. Atmavare drashtavya, shrotavya, mantavyo. Paroksha jnana. Nitidhyasitavyaha. Paroksha jnana. Eventually, Atmava are drashtavyaha, asampragnata sthiti, aparoksha jnana. So the two stages of knowledge is very, very important. And without us having a clear view on this, it's very difficult for us to move forwards in our philosophical journey. Because most of us seem to be stuck here. We just think that we go to temples, we do some puja, we do some mahaseva, this and that, give dakshina, blah, blah, read some books and think we are great jnanis. But we know God, no, it's a mental construction. Okay, we need to realize this. Everything that we're doing is mental construction. We have to go beyond that. And we had to, when you had to go into deep contemplation and then open your third eye and then see this antaryamin inside you is what is being described. It's a rigorous process that probably takes births, multiple births to master. Yeah, just going to a temple and jumping and dancing with some mantras will not take us there. It is an arduous process. After all, we struggled for 14 years to go to finish our schoolings and then go to university, then post-graduation, then working and so on. In this mundane world itself, we have to work so hard to get somewhere. Imagine the spiritual world, if you want to get there. It is a process. It is a hard process that we have to go through. If anybody thinks that there is a shortcut, please let me know, because I haven't heard of any shortcuts. You have to go through aparoksha jnana. So to give us that aparoksha jnana, how that process of aparoksha jnana should happen is where the last session, I think we very rapidly finished. So we got about 12 to 14 minutes to go through this. The state of seeing our antaryamin, which is called bimba sakshatkara, is absolutely essential for liberation. And we have said that. So here I put a small question. Why do we think that seeing our antaryamin is required for liberation? Why is that process there? Who wants to take this up? Why is God giving us this difficult process?
Is that the only way that you can burn off all your karmas?
Fantastic. Sushrut, anybody else has got a different view here? No. Okay. Everybody is in unison with you, Sushrut. Fantastic answer. So that is the process, that it is Satya Sankalpa. So that is what Paramatma said. The moment you see me, with my grace, and with my grace, I'll burn all your karmic imprints on your linga sharira, because you got innumerable karmic imprints. You may say you want to do good karma in this life, but you accumulated so much, there is no way in which you will be able to clear out all the karmas so that you don't have another birth. But at a stage of aparoksha jnana, particularly in the sutras and in the Gita, jnanagnihi basmasat kurute. Remember that verse. So It's very, very, Shastra says that when you do that aparoksha jnana, that is the only stage when with divine grace, your karmic imprints are taken out. Then you don't have any further births. Until that time, you will have, yes, there are some qualifications where if there is a prarabdha karma that has started already, you will finish that prarabdha karma and then go to Satyaloka. So that is all discussed in the 4th Adhyaya of Brahma Sutra. You can check that out. So Antaryami Sakshatkara is essential for liberation. To achieve Bimba Sakshatkara, to see that Antaryami, there is a process that is given in our Shastras. What is that process? First, you do Paroksha Jnana. Most of us don't even come to this stage. We are stuck in material jnana, okay, of mundane samsara, making wealth, etc., etc. This is where we are stuck. Some people, Sattvika Jivas, make an attempt to say, okay, what is the purpose of this life? Kim Karanam Brahma, Kutasma Jata, Jivama Kena, Pacha Sampratishta, Adhishtitaha Kena. You need to ask those questions like Shweta Shwetar Upanishad, first mantra. Or like Jayatirtha, we should become Mimikshu. Ihahi, Vivida, Samsarika, Dukkha Darshanena, Viraktasya, Samadamadi Mataha, Mumukshoho Adhikarinaha. We should experience life and see this is transient. I want something different. Okay? Then you become a Mumukshu. Then you start seeking Paroksha Jnana. Then you used to go to satsangs, listen to teachers, go to YouTube channels, read books, whatever. That is the stage, first stage. We are all stuck here. We are all here at this point. Paroksha Jnana. Long, long way to go to get Aparoksha Jnana. Okay, this is a battle. Okay, if people think it's easy, good luck to them. This is a very, very tough battle that we are having. And the Rishi here talks about Dhyana Yuddha. This is a Dhyana Yuddha, Shuanaka, if you want to do this. And he takes the bow and arrow metaphor to talk about the Dhyana Yuddha. So we will deal with that for the next 10 minutes and close this session. What is the Dhyana Yuddha that Angirasa is talking about? One of the most amazing verses of this Upanishad. What is that? Dhanur Gruhitva Upanishadam Mahastram Ayamya Tadbhava Gatena Chetasa Laksham Tadeva Aksharam Somya Vidhi. Takes the bow and arrow. Of course, in the Vedic times, they were having bow and arrows, isn't it? So the Angirasa takes up a bow and arrow and explains how that Paroksha Jnana, Aparoksha Jnana needs to happen. So there are various components of this bow. There is the Dhanur. Dhanur is the bow. Hold that bow. Dhanur Gruhitva. Hold it in your hands. So what is the metaphor of the bow? This bow is the Upanishads. Okay, this bow is the Upanishads. What is the Upanishad? Upanishad is the Veda. What is the Veda? Veda is the only route to knowing God. No other view. Naisha tarkena matirapaneya. Na avedavin manutetam bruhantam atmanam. Okay. Why are they called Veda? Tasmad Vedaha Vedayanti. That which tells you about God is Veda. So that Veda is the Upanishad. So here Angirasa says, hold this bow, which is called the Upanishad. It is Mahastram. It is a big weapon. We'll come to that Mahastram in a minute. But the first component of this analogy is the bow. The bow is the Upanishad. Sharam hi upasa nishitam sandadita. Sharam, the bow. The arrow, the arrow is the sharam. That sharam needs to be sharp. You can't use a blunt arrow and hit a tree or any target. You can do nothing with a blunt arrow. He says that sharam needs to be very, very sharp. Okay? Here that sharam is your mind. And Angirasa says your mind is the sharam, is that arrow. That arrow should be very, very sharp. Nishitam. How is it Nishitam? Upasa. Shravana, Manana, Dhyana. With that, your mind has become sharp and focused. Okay. How have you achieved that sharpness? Ayamya. You have used, the bow has a string, right? So this person, this jiva, is pulling this arrow on the string to its ears. Shravana. That is the starting point. You start Shravana. Shravana of what? Shrutis. You do the Shravana of the Upanishad. You do Shravana, then contemplation, Dhyana. Mind is fully sharp and focused. Then what do you do? Tadbhava gatena, with bhakti, with devotion. Bhava means bhakti. Okay, this is a very, very important concept. Again, some folks think jnana is liberating. Absolutely not. Jnana should lead to bhakti. Then only there is a purpose. Tat bhava gatena chetasa. Your mind is full of devotion, sharpened by the studies of the Vedas. Then what you do? Laksham tadeva aksharam. Shoot this arrow, shoot this mind towards the target. Who is the target? That Antaryamin, who is called as Aksharam in this Upanishad. Okay, so that is the process. Okay. If people think that they can read something, some other book of some guy who has written a useless transliteration of something that serves no purpose, you're not going to go for liberation. Yeah. Vedam. Upanishadam Mahastram. Vedas are very clear. Unless you read the Vedas, you go through the Upanishads, Shastras, no route, no amount of engineering is going to work here. You have to go through the Upanishad. Okay. Somya Viddhi. You, Shuanaka, who is doing all these Somayagas, and my dear fellow, this is the process. Okay. Upanishad is the Vedas. You have to hold this. Supreme can be known only through the Vedas. Okay, we have done about Upanishads. Let's break for a minute. Think about what is the etymology of Upanishads. Why did our Angirasa says Dhanur Grihitva Upanishadam? Use this Upanishad as the bow. Any Upanishad, including this Upanishad. So, what is the etymology of the Upanishad? We'll spend 30 seconds talking about it. Who's going to tell us the Upanishad etymology? No problem. I'll do a quick whistle tops to that which elevates us, right? Very simple. That which elevates us, takes us to a higher level of consciousness. How do you elevate yourselves? You go close to a guru and read. What do you read? Upanishad. Yeah, which is one view of this. So you read the Upanishad because of that. And this Upanishad is Mahastram. So this is a very interesting stuff. Maha Astram. So you would have read in Mahabharata. I think in India, currently I am there in Bangalore. There is Mahabharata going on in the evening. There, all these guys are shooting various astras. Yeah. So what is that astram? A plus tram. Tram, shastram. Shastram is a weapon. You take an arrow, you do abhi mantra. So if you take an arrow and you do, say, Agni mantra, and then you shoot the arrow, that becomes Agni astra or Brahmastra. Okay. But here, our Angirasa says, you have to do Mahastram. Maha, Eko Vishnuhu Mahatputam. That Maha, that the highest being, Vishnu. He is your, use that weapon, use that Vaishnava Astra. Use your mind and then hit your target. Okay? And in this metaphor, he gives you the whole process of how to, even get into spiritual, journey, how to do Shastra Abhyasa and so on, what is the need and purpose. If we can memorize or somehow figuratively get this picture in our mind, it gives you the whole idea of how this process needs to work. Okay. To pull the string, I told you about Shruti. I told you about devotion already. So Shravana, Manana and Dhyana is how you sharpen your mind. And that should lead to Bhakti. And with that Bhakti, you hit this target. Okay. So this is first step. This is still Paroksha Jnana. Yeah. And of course, Keno Upanishad says, Na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, no manaha, na vidmo, na vijanito imo yad etad anushishyad, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Taittiriya Upanishad. I've just told you that you need to sharpen your mind and hit this target. But then Taittiriya Upanishad says, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. You cannot reach him with your mind. Because your mind is material, but it is a process. You start somewhere, and this is how you start to get the Paroksha Jnana. But even with Paroksha Jnana, you can't hit your target, which is the Aksharam or Antaryamin. So you got to go much deeper, because material mental constructs are helpful, but they are not the destination. They are not the final result. And here, the next verse, we'll finish off today with this verse. Pranavo danuhu sharohi atma brahmata lakshamuchyate apramattena vedavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. So he says, go beyond that. You're reading the Upanishad, you're understanding who this Akshara is, who this Paramatma is, and so on. Think about how in the process of creation, what was it that the first thing that came out of Brahman that then became all these Vedas and Upanishads? Go to that. Pranavo Danuhu. Okay. So maybe we should take up this pranava as the word today and close today's session. So who is going to tell us why Angirasa has said pranavo danuhu? Previously he said Upanishad is danu. Now he says pranavo danuhu. Sharohi atma brahmata lakshamuchyate apramattena vedyam saravat tanmayo bhaved. Okay. We'll just close off today's session by thinking about what does pranava mean. So who is going to tell us what pranava mean? Anand, go for it.
Pranava is Omkara. It's the primordial syllable Om, and it's the essence of Vedas. And as you just said, from Pranava comes Gayatri, and from the three sargas of Purusha Sukta, and then the Vedas. So it is
Beautiful.
the of
Yeah,
Veda.
beautiful, Anandji. So that's the view there. So let's do what this pranava is. So pranava means, look at the etymology of pranava. That itself is beautiful. Pra plus nava. Pra means prakrushta. Nava means new. Nava can also mean 9. Stotra or stuti. Okay, the most auspicious stuti is what pranava is. Pra na va pra sreshta nakaro balam Mahaitre Upanishad bhala. Where there is strength, there is ananda. Vam jnanam. Jnana means knowledge. Who is the being with the highest levels of knowledge and ananda? Jnanananda maya is who? Paramatma. This antaryami that is there inside us is that pranava. So that is the essence of all the Upanishads. All Upanishads talk about this pranava. And again, Angirasa comes to this in the subsequent verses. Yeah, he says, Om ityeva dhyayata. So he categorically says, Om ityeva dhyayata. That Om is pranava, which is, it is ever new. This Paramatma is ever new. He never ages. He is always new. He is worshipped in Navavida ways, Navavida Bhakti, in Stutis. So all those 9 ideas should come. And as Anandji very beautifully mentioned, Om is what? Akara, Ukara, Makara, Pra, Na, Va, Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Gadya, Pada 1, Pada 2, and Pada 3 of Gayatri, Varga 1, Varga 2, Varga 3 of Purusha Shukta, Padya, Gadya, Gana, Rig, Yajus, Sama, Upanishads. So he says from Upanishads, study, and eventually reach this point, Om, and then move forwards. Okay, then you use that Om, and then go to the Aparoksha Jnana, Asampragnata Sthiti state. That is what Angirasa is going to be talking to us in the next week. Okay, see, the next Sunday we will take up this. I hope this was useful, because I think we have done quite a lot of Upanishads and we took quite a good break for about 3 to 4 weeks. So I thought to get into that mood and to get into that groove of what is the great philosophy that Angirasa is talking about, I just wanted to spend this session just to remind us all as to what we have covered so far, including this verse. So from next verse, we'll talk about this greatness of pranava. And that is a beautiful session. We got to bring in Mandukya Upanishad there, which is also part of the Atharva Veda, as you know. Mandukya Upanishad is all about Omkara, right? So we have to bring that Mandukya Upanishad. That will become a revision for us. Actually, what is the importance of this pranava? Why this Om is a big deal? What does it actually mean? What are the various ways of understanding Om as a single entity? Om as 2 syllables, Om as 3 syllables, as 4 syllables, as 6 syllables, as 8 syllables. What are all the things, anusandhana, that we need to know? After all, Mandukya Upanishad finishes off, says, Omkaro vidito yena sa munir. That person who knows about Omkara is the real Muni. Yeah, that is what the Mandukya Upanishad actually closes with it. Sa munir na itaro janaha, sa munir na itaro janaha. Twice it says and closes Mandukya Upanishad. So he talks about all the greatness of Omkara, and we'll take it up in the subsequent sessions. Let's do about that Omkara, because that is very important to understand before we go to the following sessions. As I said, it says Otam Manaha, what does that mean? Om iti dhyayata, what does it mean? And so on. Yeah. So on that note, Krishna Pranamastu. If we have any questions, we can take it up now. If not, we shall close today's session. So it looks like we have a few questions. All right, no worries. So take care, everyone. We'll touch base again next Sunday. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare
And
Krishna.
before
Thank
we
you.
close, can I also ask Anand ji to recite Omkar and close today, please?
Okay. Om.
Beautiful, Anand ji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Take care, and we'll catch up again next Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Namah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.